This Flutter Flame tutorial will show you how to add sprite components, in this case a dragon, to the screen, and then tap on the screen on your mobile phone to delete the sprite component from your game. The characters are spawned with a timer. There are 23 other tutorials that cover the basics of Flame. The main concept of this game is to use tappable. When you detect a tap, remove the dragon from the screen. The objective is to control each character, in this case a dragon, independently. To get the tappable mixin to work with your sprite component, you must also use a mixin for has tappable components on the base game of the Flame. Additional key concepts in this tutorial include using the Flame timer, the timer built into Flame, to control the spawn rate of the character, in this case a dragon once per second. We're also using cached images instead of loading the same dragon from disk 100 times. Create a brand new Flutter project. This should also work on iOS and Android. This example does show Windows. Open the editor. I'm using VS Code. Create assets images to store the image files that we'll be using for the sprites. Copy image files into the new directory you just created. You will at least need the graphic for the character. In pubspec.yaml, uncomment the section for assets and change it to assets images. You don't need to specify the individual file names. You can just specify the directory. Use the most recent version of Flame 1.0. I'm using Flame 1.0 release candidate 13. Insert this version into your pubspec.yaml file. Copy it from the install tab. Save pubspec.yaml, run flutter pub get. Open the main.dart file in your lib folder. Delete most of the context. Just leave the line for run app. At this point, there should be only 5 lines in the entire main.dart file. Test to make sure that Flutter was properly installed by running the game widget and instantiating base game. This is in the game package of the Flame. Note that on line 1 it says flame game.dart. Run it. You should now see a completely black screen. It will be completely blank. This is what we want. After verifying that you properly installed the Flame package and that you can see a completely black screen, we're next going to work on the base game. Create a new class that extends base game and call it Dragon. Class is a keyword from Dart. Dragon game is a variable name that you create for yourself. Extends is a keyword from Dart. Base game is from Flame. Above run app, create a new variable called game and instantiate the Dragon game class. Pass the new instantiated game object to the game widget. Test the game again. You should be able to rerun it and have it run the Dragon game, which at this stage is exactly the same as the base game, but now we're going to extend it and write some new functionality for the Dragon game. To load the graphics files from disk, we're going to need to use the onload method. The onload method is part of base game. We're going to make it async so that we can await for the graphic file to be loaded from the disk and be usable within the system. Once we load the graphics file, the dragon.png, from the disk into our game, we're going to pass it into a very powerful Flame component called Sprite Component. The Sprite component is part of Flame. Flame looks for the graphics files and assets images. Do not change the names of the directories. Above the onload method, create a new Sprite component and instantiate it as Dragon. Once you instantiated Dragon, go back into the onload method, and within the curly brackets, then we're going to use the cascade operators to pass it a number of different parameters, including the sprite, the position, and the size of the dragon, the size of the sprite component on the screen. At each step, stop and reload the game to make sure that it's working. To load the sprite, we're going to use a load sprite, which is from Flame again. We're going to put the keyword await. Await is from Dart to make sure that the game here is waiting until the sprite has loaded before we add the dragon into the game. The two dots are called the cascade operator, and it's just a shortcut so that we don't have to write dragon.sprite or dragon.size for every property that we assign to dragon. Although the vector2, which is part of the Dart vector math package, might be new, you can just think of it as the specific x and y coordinate that you want to place the dragon on the screen. For the size property, it's the width and the height. The first one being the width and the second one being the height. After you've set up the dragon with the proper properties, then add the dragon to the game. Add dragon, or add, is part of the Flame system. Okay, congratulations, you've got the sprite on the screen. We're ready to build some functionality into the game. The first thing is that we want to detect the tap on the sprite. So in order to start detecting taps on the mobile app screen or the mouse click, we're going to make sure that the base game, we're going to use a mixin called has tappable components. The with keyword is from Dart. It signifies a mixin. Has tappable components is part of Flame. Create a new class called Dragon and have it extend the sprite component. We're going to add additional functionality onto the sprite component with the tappable mixin. Once we add the tappable mixin to the sprite component, we can override the built-in on tap down method that's within tappable and access the sprite when you hit on it or tap down on it. First, change the dragon or the sprite component to dragon, and then let's test it again. Make sure the dragon still appears on the screen, which it does. Now we're going to extend it. So the keyword here from Dart is with, and then tappable is from Flame. There are 2 P's in release candidate 13 for Flame. Prior to that, there was 1 P. Now we're going to override the built-in on tap down method that we got from tappable. This has also changed. Right now it is expecting to return a Boolean value. So we're going to set up a try catch statement and return true if it actually does succeed in removing the sprite when it's on tap down, and we're going to otherwise we'll catch the error and return false. With this one small modification, we're now able to tap on all the dragons on the mobile screen, and then the dragon will disappear. This technique of extending the sprite component is very powerful. The main point here is that the individual sprite component, in this case the dragon, can have its own set of methods attached to it. Test it out and make sure it works. Boom. Adjust the size and position of the first dragon so that we can jam additional dragons onto the screen. Prior to building a timer so that we can have the dragons automatically spawn from a central location, we're going to just put a loop into the onload method. So bring the sprite component for the dragon down into that loop, test to make sure that it works first within the onload, and then once we make sure that the dragon still loads, create a simple for loop. So we're going to go from 0 up to maybe 10, or let's maybe say 5 dragons to start with, and then we're going to create 5 dragons in a row. And just alter the y coordinate to make sure that we have the dragons populated from top to bottom, and then we can test each one, make sure that it does disappear when we click on it. We're going to use the I counter that's in the for loop as the mechanism to spread the dragons out in a Y position. So I'm going to multiply I times 100 and then add 10 to it for some additional spacing. Each dragon sprite is 100 pixels high. So now we have 5 dragons on it. If we just click on each dragon, the dragon will disappear, showing that each sprite component, each monster here, does have the unique control over each one. Thanks for joining this video tutorial. Hope you had a good time. Hope you have a great day. I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. This is a hobby of mine. I'm just doing it for fun to teach my own kid programming. And I enjoy getting feedback from other people. So if you can improve these techniques, please feel free to leave a comment and give me some tips. And most important, just enjoy the day.